Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at another book from the Child Poverty Action Group. I always enjoy reviewing their works. They are incredibly important, very competitively priced works with a great deal of information to help unrepresented parties. This particular book is called the Child Support Handbook for the years 2016 to 2017, now in its 24th edition, and it's been updated by Mark Brough. Now, Elizabeth and I have given a title for this book for our review, another welfare law handbook for our time, part of the excellent and established CPAG advice series, and that's exactly what it is. Do go on the website for CPAG and you will see all the books they have, which should cover just about all aspects of the queries you might have. This is the front anyway of the book. There's the spine, and then on the back there's quite a lot of detail. I'll move it back just a bit. You can see there are some quotes and there's some detail about what's actually in the book itself. It's £36. It's not an expensive book by any standards today, and it's available in public libraries. I've certainly seen this in public libraries. So there's the index at the back. Now you can see the index. It actually is by page numbering. If you can look at it, I'll move it up a bit. You can see that page numbering. It's not a big index at all, but it's useful. It tells you how to use it as well. Remember, the typeface is quite small for people like me with eyesight issues. It can be a bit difficult to see some of these things. There are a series of appendices at the back. The last one is on abbreviations. We'll get on to that in a minute. Let's move to the front of the book, and I'll just show you the front. Here is the front cover, and after that you've got some detail, basic information about CPAG and the author. Then after that you've got some acknowledgements, and then you've got the contents section, which you can probably see. Reasonably simply laid out in different parts and chapter headings all the way through. It runs to 14 chapters, and then there are 5 appendices, and then the index. And then you've got little abbreviations at the front. There is an abbreviations at the back as well, but there's a short copy there for that. Then you've got the chapters. You've got the number of the chapter at the top there. You've got a little sub-index for what's actually in the chapter there. Then you've got basic things. What is child support? All basic factual information. There are no footnotes, but what you do have are that is on a page-by-page basis, but what you do have at the end of each chapter is a notes section, which is actually the references to excuse me, Acts of Parliament, statutory instruments and so forth, all the rules and cases sometimes and so forth, which will give you some information, which certainly any advisors helping you may have, because a lot of the work in this area of welfare law is incredibly and unnecessarily complicated. It's got worse, not better. Just like tax and all the other things, you would have thought we would have a simplified system. But no, it's completely the other way around. It's got far more complicated. Simplicity has gone out of the window, and it's very, very unfair because it's balanced very much against the individual. It's also, I think, unfair for the state, because I think an awful lot of people involved in this haven't got the first idea about what some of these rules are about. And they've got so clever and so enwrapped in themselves that we end up with having to have these books from CPAG just to help us get around the myriad of problems. Now, I don't mean to bleat about this, but it really, you've got to call time at some stage. And I know people hate Thatcher, but I'll tell you one thing that did happen in the 1980s. There was a serious attempt to try to unmuddle some of the nonsense that had been built up in the decades before. And of course we've returned to that with a vengeance since the end of the last century and the beginning of this century. And I think it is time, certainly with Brexit, that we might be able to start looking afresh and simplifying the systems. Anyway, enough of the party political or non-party political broadside. The fact is we've got to have some simplicity. At the moment we have these books and they're great fun for us. not for the people who've got to make the applications, but they're helpful to us, and they're fun in the sense that this is one place where you're going to find information. Now, what do we say then about the book? Well, Mark Brough and his colleagues at Child Poverty Action Group offer clear practical guidance for parents and their advisors in what is a detailed and highly informative work on child support and all the arrangements. It's rightly described as a comprehensive guide to the child support scheme and as an excellent and established paperback at an affordable price. And I think that's a key to this, because the people we're dealing with don't have a lot of money. And also, we do need to know where we might see these books, where they will be readily available, apart from going to, say, Smith's or wherever it might be. You might possibly Waterson's, you might possibly be able to buy them there, but you should find them in a public library and a Citizens Advice Bureau. Now, CPAG, which is an excellent charity, works on behalf of the 1 in 4 children who are growing up in poverty in the United Kingdom today. Disgraceful, but that's the way it is. The purpose behind this publication is to give the reader some understanding of what causes poverty, the impact it has on children's lives, and how it can be solved and prevented. So you've got a pretty wide mission there. The group develops and campaigns for policy solutions to end child poverty, which is a laudable aim, of course. And the Handbook series of titles, of which I've tried to review as many as I can, they remain of great assistance to hard-up families in the 21st century, and we're indebted to CPAG for the service they give us for social law advice. And it really is par excellence the best. And really, I think if anything, you get better advice there than anywhere else in terms of trying to know your way around the system. Because whatever agencies you use, most of them don't know. That's the big problem about all of this, which is one of the reasons why this book is so helpful. The writers, of course, of this work, not just Mr. Brough but his team, have explained in an accessible and logical way basic points about the modern complex system, including the following: how to apply for child support, the powers that the Child Maintenance Service and Child Support Agency can exercise, how to calculate maintenance, how to challenge decisions and make complaints, and what happens if you do not pay child support, including the powers available to deduct money from bank accounts. Again, important, very basic powers and information. And like all CPAG handbooks, this annual update reminds one of the best regular short statements of the child support scheme, which is given in clear, practical, hands-on styles of information for families and those who advise and counsel them. And the 24th edition, which covers the year 2016 to 17, is fully indexed, as I've shown you, and helpful cross-referencing to legislation and case law authorities abound. I do think you've got to get used to using the book, but this is very much the house style of most CPAG publications, and I think it's, once you know how it's structured, it's relatively easy to find your way around. And I think it's certainly right to say that this latest edition of the Child Support Handbook has been restructured to highlight the position that most cases are now being dealt with under the latest scheme. That's the one introduced in 2012. Remember, that was the coalition government scheme. What we particularly liked were the practical examples of maintenance calculations and tactical hints and tips for dealing with the Child Maintenance Service and Child Support Agency, which were also included. Because let's face it, you're dealing with the state, and they're not as helpful as they might be. A lot of them are very caring people, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, they're not the greatest. They're not the lightest bulbs in the pack, some of them, or brightest rather. That's one of the problems. If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and the problem is that, again, the people you're dealing with aren't being paid very much. So you've got to be aware, you've got to go to the right sources to get your information, and you've got to know what to do so you can go in with a bit of degree of confidence. What Brough and his team have fully indexed here and cross-referenced is the information, in fact, for cases and, of course, all the statutory provisions which were enforced for 2016 to 17. And it gives us the most professional written advice service for this area of welfare law, which makes it easier to understand. And I think that's the key to the CPAG publications. I'd like to thank everybody at CPAG for the work they do. Frankly, without your help, a lot more people would have a lot more difficulty. And at the end of the day, the state, I think, owes a great deal more in terms of the information and offers they give by way of information to people, which they don't do. And on that basis alone, we need this sort of information. So thank you to the charity very much indeed. The law is as stated at the 1st of June 2016. I'm recording this at the beginning of 2017. There is the book again. There it is. I'm probably fairly aggressive in the way I'm talking about this book, but I think one has to, because when you're dealing with these problems, and actually as an elected politician, which I have been, these matters crop up on a very regular basis. Here we go. This is Chapter 9, the 2003 Rules Calculation. So a lot of very detailed hands-on information here. Chapter 10, Decisions. Again, you see you've got a lot of stuff, and then you get to things like collection and enforcement, and then you've got complaints at the back. And don't be afraid to complain. I mean, one of the problems about the British is they don't complain enough. One of the reasons is that if you don't complain, you don't keep people on their toes. That probably sounds rather cynical, but it's an important point to bear in mind. Keep people on their toes when it comes to the jobs they're meant to be doing, and that means that you will actually raise standards to a certain extent, because that means they know they've got to carry out the functions that they're there to do. And that includes anything concerning state provisions for welfare law. Anyway, CPAG, thank you so much indeed, and a Happy New Year to you all. Bye-bye for now.